This was a deadly training session, a cruel test of nerve. In the instructor's hand, a real grenade gleamed ominously. A boy was meant to receive it. But before the instructor could even speak, the terrified boy pulled the pin. The instructor's panicked shout startled him, causing the grenade to drop. The instructor, self-preservation kicking in, fled first, leaving the children frozen in place, unsure of what to do as death loomed. Then, another boy heroically threw himself onto the grenade, his eyes fearless. The other children were terrified, wondering how someone could be so unafraid of death. This was no ordinary school, this was a Nazi academy, a place designed to forge elite military personnel for the empire's leaders. These children, ranging from 10 to 18 years old, were destined to be the future masters of the Nazi regime. Upon graduation, they would become regional leaders, with their designated territories being Washington, Moscow, and London. The selection process was ruthless and stringent. First, candidates had to possess pure Aryan blood, with specific requirements for eye and hair color. They also had to undergo rigorous physical and intelligence tests. Even the slightest flaw meant immediate dismissal. 17-year-old Friedrich had been a humble coal miner. But today, his life was about to change forever. He had just defeated the top student in the entire school in a boxing match, a feat witnessed by a high-ranking officer. Soon after, that officer sought out Friedrich, extending an invitation to join the National Political Academy. The young coal worker felt a surge of hope, his life was finally turning a new page. He swiftly took the academy's entrance exam. With his pure Aryan lineage and the officer's recommendation, Friedrich passed with flying colors. He rushed home, eager to share the news with his parents. This was a golden opportunity, one that others desperately yearned for. Yet, to his disbelief, his father vehemently opposed it. Friedrich couldn't comprehend his father's reaction and felt a wave of indignation. His father, in a shocking display, slapped him across the face. Friedrich had been unaware that his own father was an anti-Nazi. Despite the blow, Friedrich refused to abandon this chance. That night, as everyone slept, he left a letter and quietly slipped away. Friedrich arrived at the academy in no time, registering his name. Everything felt new and strange. The moment he donned the military uniform, a thrill coursed through him. He couldn't resist performing a Nazi salute in front of the mirror, a glimpse of his bright future seemingly reflecting back at him. During the welcoming ceremony, Friedrich listened intently to the headmaster's powerful speech, swelling with pride. He was quickly swept up by the academy's spirit, his mind slowly but surely indoctrinated with Nazi ideology. In the middle of the night, a new student arrived. His name was Albrecht, the son of a high-ranking Nazi official. But unlike other privileged boys, Albrecht wasn't arrogant. Instead, he offered to help Friedrich fold his bedding. The bond between these young men was simple, yet profound. They shot guns together, learned to fly planes, and even secretly watched girls bathe. They quickly became the closest of friends. But Nazi education was about victory and defeat, not friendship. The academy organized a boxing competition, a chance for Friedrich to prove himself. Halfway through the match, Friedrich was bloodied and battered. Only after he understood his opponent's fighting style did he begin to retaliate, using his boxing skills to defeat the other boy. Cheers erupted from the crowd. Friedrich believed he had won, but to his horror, the instructor and headmaster demanded he keep hitting his opponent until he was completely knocked out. Friedrich hesitated, his opponent was already down, why continue? Then, the instructor's words echoed in his mind, forget your humanity in that moment. Only then can you unleash your true potential. With a grim set to his jaw, Friedrich unleashed a final blow that rendered his opponent unconscious. The instructor finally smiled, a look of grim satisfaction on his face. This was the essence of Nazi education, cold-blooded and ruthless. Everyone applauded Friedrich, except for Albrecht, who stood still, unmoved. After the match, as Friedrich reveled in his victory, Albrecht approached him. He was down, why did you keep hitting him? Don't you have any compassion? Albrecht, with his gentle nature, was deeply disappointed by Friedrich's ruthless act. Their friendship, once so strong, was fractured, and they avoided each other's gaze. Little did they know, the cruelest lessons of Nazi education had only just begun. A young boy named Siegfried, whose hands were sweating, sensed something was wrong. Soon, a snitch exposed his secret, he wet the bed. The instructor ordered him to get his mattress, then made him strip and urinate on it in front of everyone. Siegfried couldn't do it. The instructor then forced everyone to do push-ups until Siegfried finally urinated. Shame, remorse, and fear enveloped him. He eventually wet the mattress, but it wasn't over. His nightmare had just begun. A few days later, Siegfried wet the bed again. The snitch returned, tormenting him, demanding payment for his silence. If Siegfried didn't pay, he threatened to tell the instructor. But Siegfried had no money. Remembering the last punishment, he was desperate to avoid it. What could he do? Today's training was grenade throwing. Yes, a real grenade. The anxious boy held it in his hand, and before the instructor could say anything, he pulled the pin. The instructor screamed frantically, startling the boy, who dropped the grenade. The instructor, unconcerned for anyone but himself, fled first, leaving the children frozen in place, unsure of what to do. As death drew near, a boy from behind rushed forward, without hesitation, throwing himself onto the grenade. He looked up, and it was Siegfried. The suddenness of the event horrified everyone. The next day, everyone gathered in the hall for Siegfried's solemn funeral. Friedrich knew that in the face of death, Siegfried had selflessly sacrificed himself to save everyone. He was posthumously awarded a hero's medal. But Friedrich also knew that Siegfried had chosen to end his life to escape further humiliation. Sometimes, dignity is more important than life itself. The boy who dropped the grenade was expelled from the school. Yet, the instructor faced no punishment, as if nothing had happened. Today's training was high jump. The instructor emphasized the importance of muscle. To demonstrate his own physique, he called Friedrich forward and told him to punch him in the stomach. The instructor took a deep breath. For Friedrich, this punch was for Siegfried. Albrecht, seeing Friedrich's courage, invited him to his father's birthday party. The two friends reconciled. At the party, Albrecht wrote a poem to read to his father, but before he could, his father interrupted him. He had no interest in Albrecht's poetry. Albrecht was deeply saddened. However, when his father learned that Friedrich was a boxer, he became excited and led the two boys down to the basement, where they were forced to fight for everyone's entertainment. Amidst the cheers, Friedrich punched Albrecht, knocking him down. Albrecht's father rushed over, embracing Friedrich and praising him profusely, completely ignoring his own son. In his father's eyes, Albrecht was nothing. For Nazi officials, only victory mattered. This incident caused a deep rift between Friedrich and Albrecht. One evening, Albrecht's father suddenly arrived at the academy with an urgent mission. A group of Soviet prisoners of war being transported to a concentration camp had escaped nearby. Their task was to capture these prisoners. Each boy was given a rifle and several boxes of ammunition, then set out. Some were exhilarated, while most looked anxious and apprehensive. After a search, they found the Soviet prisoners in the forest. In the darkness, they fired relentlessly without confirming their targets. Upon inspection, they discovered that these Soviet prisoners were unarmed and, like them, teenagers. Albrecht cried out, "Quick, get bandages." He frantically tried to stop the bleeding of one of the boys. As the young Soviet soldiers slowly died, Friedrich was at a loss. They weren't the vicious, monstrous enemies the commander had described. At that moment, Albrecht's father walked over. Without a word, he shot and killed the wounded Soviet boy. Friedrich was utterly disillusioned with the academy, his family, and his homeland. The other prisoners were also cornered by the Nazis and systematically massacred. Unarmed Soviet soldiers became training fodder for the new Nazi recruits. That night, the sounds of their first killings echoed endlessly in their minds, a memory they could never erase. The next day, the instructor acted as if nothing had happened, ordering them to write an essay about a winter scene. Albrecht, however, wrote his true thoughts and read them aloud in front of everyone. He passionately criticized his father for killing an unarmed teenage prisoner. He was expelled by the instructor. When his father heard the news, he rushed to the school. He wouldn't allow his son to defy his authority, demanding Albrecht rewrite the essay, admit his mistake, or be sent to the front lines. But Albrecht refused. Friedrich asked him, "Why did you write such an essay? You can't even beat me in boxing, you'll face so many dangers on the front lines." The two argued fiercely, then broke down in tears. They never imagined this would be their first and last fight. Another deadly training session awaited. The temperature was a brutal -30°C. A boy stripped off his clothes and plunged into the icy water, then gripped a rope and swam forward. The others watched anxiously. After a while, the boy emerged from another hole in the ice. This was their training for the day, completing it would earn them 9 points. Soon, it was Albrecht's turn. He watched Friedrich climb out, then jumped in. But he stopped halfway, looking into the bottomless depths of the lake. Seeing Albrecht not emerging, Friedrich sensed something was wrong. He rushed over, clearing the snow, and called out Albrecht's name. Albrecht looked up, then slowly let go. Friedrich frantically pounded the ice, but it was too thick. Separated by a layer of ice, their hands pressed together in a final farewell. Albrecht shook his head, his face filled with despair. He had chosen this way to defy his father. Perhaps only death could free him from this terrifying world. Friedrich collapsed on the ice, no longer feeling the cold. Back in the dormitory, he was overcome with pain. He hated that his only friend had left him this way and was utterly disillusioned with this place. Albrecht's parents also received the news of their son's death. His mother was consumed by grief, while his father merely frowned, saying his son was too weak. Friedrich wanted to do something for Albrecht. He used a typewriter to compose an obituary to publish in the newspaper. But the headmaster refused, for in the eyes of the Nazis, those who took their own lives had no place of burial. Even Albrecht's parents agreed. Albrecht's death became meaningless, they even believed Friedrich had indirectly caused it. But the academy offered Friedrich one last chance, he only needed to represent the academy and win the boxing competition to prove his loyalty to the Nazis. Thus, this match would determine Friedrich's future. The match began. Friedrich started defensively. After understanding his opponent's style, he launched a surprise attack. A powerful punch quickly knocked his opponent down. He looked around, seeing the cheering audience, the headmaster's smug face, and the father's face, devoid of grief for his lost son. Only Albrecht's face was missing. He thought, "Is this what I want?" Friedrich slowly lowered his hands. The entire cheering crowd fell silent, bewildered. His opponent seized the opportunity, landing a punch that sent him to the ground. Friedrich had decided to sacrifice his bright future and join Albrecht in defying this cold-blooded world. Friedrich's failure brought shame upon the academy. He was now worthless. The headmaster didn't even bother to look up, ordering him to remove his uniform, even his underwear. "These are all academy property," he declared. Friedrich hesitated, then returned to the dormitory to change into his civilian clothes. As he left, none of his former friends looked at him, and the instructor pushed him out. Friedrich walked in shorts through the heavy snowfall, glancing back at the place he once believed would bring him glory, his eyes devoid of lingering attachment. He turned and headed home. Compared to Siegfried, who sacrificed his life for dignity, and Albrecht, who chose death to defy the world, Friedrich was luckier. He survived and left before losing himself entirely. The others, however, continued to be brainwashed until they became pawns of the Nazi regime. This concludes our look at the film. The movie is titled Before the Fall. Did you find this film engaging? If so, please hit the like button and leave a comment below to support us. Thank you for watching our video. Goodbye and see you again.